Hey everyone, Climb Callie here, and today we're going to be looking at Vortis and her preview. The biggest questions is like, well, is her kit good? And, should you pull her? So, when I first looked at her, my initial thought was a secondary DPS. Now, why would you think that, or why would I think that? Is that if we look at her level up or enlightenment stats, there's nothing that says this is really like a main DPS stat, right? So they normally would be crit rate or crit damage or damage amp. Instead, it's realm mastery and key flare regen level. So that kind of tells me, okay, well, she's probably a secondary DPS. And then I looked a little bit more at her kit, and rather than going like one by one, we're going to go like what I think her main use is basically this card right here. Her command card 2, her 2 cost reload. This kind of screams that they want you to spam her reload. Ideally, the way it kind of goes is that you play this card, you get one of these stacks, which is called stack Vortex reload. So we'll just call it a reload stack. And then after any other awakener unleashes an exalt, you consume one of these stacks, and Vortis unleashes a vortex shell. I'm just going to call it a blue shell as a pursuit. Okay, so like she just does this thing. So what does this blue shell do? It deals 5,400 fixed damage to the enemy with the highest HP, and you gain tentacle damage. So ideally, what you kind of want to have with her is you want one stack of reload on your team before you exalt somebody else. And that's pretty much the main part of her play. Now, the part that's a little weird with this is it says it's usable 3 times. And usable X times is actually like a new keyword. And what I think this is that you play it and it goes back to your hand because it says it only enters the discard pile and resets the count after being used X times. So I think they're going to have like a little thing that says like 1 out of 3. You play it once and it goes back to your hand. Then you can play it again. It goes back to your hand. Then you play it again. It goes back to your hand. And then it goes back into the discard pile because there's nothing that says it gets used up once you play it 3 times. So that's how I think this is going to work. But if you put an Orison on it, it's only going to happen the first 1 out of 3. And I think that's mainly just to stop people from like abusing some Orisons, like weakness as an example. I would basically like put weakness on and then play it 3 times, and then now I have 3 turns of weakness, and like that drastically makes the game a lot easier for me. So that's kind of the main thing here is she will feel very similar to how Pollux feels, where you basically play his sacred, sorry. So you play a sacred, but then it goes to the draw pile and you have to draw a card, and then you play a sacred again, and then it goes to the draw pile and you draw it again, and you play a sacred 3 times, right? And then it does something. So, and very similar to also how Caster does the same thing. You play that card 3 times, then it transforms into something else. And that's kind of what you're doing here. You're playing her card 3 times, and you move on. So now the part that you have to think about is like, okay, well, what team do I want this in where I'm going to like spam this, right? And like, how does this really help me? Because one thing I was looking at is her E2 here. So her E2 drops the arithmetica cost down by 1. Okay, so the only way that's useful is if I have 2 reloads in my hand. So that means I have to duplicate reload somehow. So if I had like 2 of them in my hand and they both cost 2, right? I play a strike, and now those 2 reloads cost 1 each. So, but I have to duplicate it, which means I have to put on either meds as a covenant, or I have to have Theiss, or I have to use Theiss's posse, or I have to do like another thing just to duplicate it. So there's only so many ways that I can duplicate it. And then I was kind of thinking about, well, why would I duplicate it? And the only reason why I would be duplicating it that aggressively is that my team's going to exalt a lot very often because I'm going to run out. Remember, I said like the thing is to always have 1 stack of reload on your team before you exalt anybody else. So if your team's like constantly exalting, then you're like, okay, well, I need to be able to create lots of reload. So that was kind of like her main thing. Now, what I was thinking about is like with a blue team, I actually think you actually don't want to exalt her often, because a lot of people have been seeing that, like, her exalt does like all this damage, right? You deal 750% tentacle damage to the boss, and dealing 2 times the damage to an enemy with the highest HP. It can be buffed up if you get more like dupes of her. And then, but the problem is that you sacrifice up to 3 additional permanent tentacles each time you would, up to 3 each time you exalt her. But the nice part is that her base illness is actually 200. So I actually think in a blue team, you're not using her to exalt her, you're using her to gain tentacle damage. This is a tentacle damage bot. You gain it plus 27. So you're basically spamming this 2 cost to not only get your Vortex reload stack, but also to get tentacle damage. And then you would use her as a nuke at the very end. So right before the boss is going to die, you're like, okay, now we'll use this nuke and I'll lose a whole bunch of tentacles, right? So what's kind of nice about that is that means you don't need to rouse her right away. Okay, so in terms of a rouse priority, she's probably going to be one that you rouse last. And what does her rouse even do? Let's see. Vortex gains 50 Elmas, okay, and then you draw 1 reload. Okay, and then after Vortis unleashes Pursuit, her next Exalt gains an additional 150% tentacle damage, stacking up to 5 times. So here's a way I can duplicate reload, right? So I would draw 1 reload. No, I can't duplicate it. I only draw 1. Maybe it also like puts into my hand, because if I had one already retained, I think if I draw another one, then that means I get a second one in my hand. So I guess I could do that. And then I would be playing a strike or a defense to get this down, to get that reload down. So when I kind of see that interaction, my first thing is that maybe a Covenant or an SR wheel that will give me a striker defense in hand, because then if I can like duplicate this reload and then I play a striker defense, it drops this down and then I can like spam this card, which would be really good. So that's one angle that you can kind of take with her. All of the rest of this I'm not really going to go too much into, but the big other thing that she does is that when she's in the realm, we transform into the Divine Aqueer realm. Now the problem with this is that we don't get any of the Lemurian buffs, but we get the Divine Acre Realm stuff. So that's going to like kind of switch things up. Okay. However, if we're thinking about like now not a blue team DPS and we go to another realm DPS, we'll probably still spam this reload card. But now we actually will probably spam her exalt, because we don't really care about losing tentacles. We don't care if the number is there. We just basically care if we can flip to red stance. And so I'm thinking like the best way to probably do this is put her into a Caro Aqua team. All right, so let's start to look at the teams and some that are my theory crafted teams here, and let's see what happens with this. Okay, so my first one here is the blue team. I would actually put her into a discard team. I'm using Kekus as a placeholder for Vortex. So what I'd be doing here is my first Covenant thought that I've thought about is actually Deus Ex Machina, because it does both Realm Mastery and you gain 1 Arithmetica in the first turn of each battle. So what this would do is that what I'm hoping for basically is to draw Vortis's 2 cost into my hand, and then to be able to play at the very first turn so I can immediately get 1 stack of that reload on my team, right? So that's the ideal, like turn 1 is get that. Then for a wheel, actually, I was looking at Arita's wheel. Like in general, I want to try to spam her card a lot. So after she plays a card, she only gains 1 Elmas, but then at the start of combat, she gains 9% of the wielder's strength, and her strength is really high, so that really helps you, and you gain tentacle damage, right? And then you gain more strength and tentacle damage, so that really helps her out with their team. And I think this might be like a best in slot plus 12 wheel with her own sig wheel is probably what's going to happen. But now this part comes down to, well, what do you do with the rest of the discard team, right? So for me, one of the things that I don't really love about the discard team is I don't feel like there's a great way for them to gain health. And it'd be really nice if there was like a unit that was like, whenever you like an aftershock card that's like you get rid of this card and then you get like, you heal for like 10 or 20 or something, right? So that would be awesome. But right now, when you don't have heal, it can be a little hard to make it through. And then if you have Vortis on your team, what's going to happen is you're also in the Divine Aqueer realm, so you can't play shield that often, right? You can't go into white stance. So you have to wait 3 turns to do it. So like that kind of makes it harder. So without a healer to help you sustain, you kind of need one, right? So out of all of the healers, I like Clem the best because her healing's really strong. And then I thought about putting this Cov on her. So this is the blue slug. Basically because I'm using her as a healer. So like if I use Annihilation and the tentacle stances switch within 1 turn, the wielder's shield, healing, and final damage is up within a 3-turn cooldown, right? So the 3-turn cooldown also tells me the same as like if I flip into red or white stance, right? I'll still have a 3-turn cooldown with Divine Aqueer Realm, and so those kind of line up. So it's kind of easy to remember when this effect will happen. And the way that Clem heals a lot and really well, just for y'all who don't understand Clem, is you actually rouse her first, and then the first command card that she plays happens twice. So from this, she's going to restore from me, right? She restores 69 HP temporarily, but this also goes up with your Soul Forge. Don't forget that. So it's Constitution times 45%. So for me, she's actually healing about like 120 every time I play this card, but it happens twice. So she heals for 240 the very first time I play it in a turn. So anyway, that's how Clem's going to heal you. And one of the other things that's going to be interesting about Vortis is that whole blue shell ability. So when you have that stack on the team, when somebody else exalts, let's say it's Corpo here, I'm curious about the order that it's going to happen in. So if like Corpo exalts, does she exalt and then the blue shell triggers and then Corpo does her whole thing? Or is it that Corpo goes through her whole thing and then the blue shell triggers? And that's very particular also with Clem because Clem's going to put on a debuff on the enemies, right? So if I go to exalt Clem and the blue shell triggers and then Clem puts on her debuff, that kind of sucks because it will actually do less damage. But if Clem goes through her whole thing first and then the debuff happens, or then the blue shell happens, like because say Clem's debuff happens first and then the blue shell happens, that's like a better turn order. So there's going to be some little nuances there that we have to kind of figure out, and maybe there also might be like some little bugs, like it was supposed to operate one way in the first, but it's actually not operating that way, and they change it within like the first 3 days. That's kind of normal with some new released units. But so I have that, and then the last slot. So I would probably say that these are going to be your 3 main people for this team, right? So you're going to have Corpo, you're going to have Vortis, and you're going to probably have Clem or what's the one in Aqueer that heals again? Celeste. So, or you can have Clem or Celeste here, so one of the C's here. And then your last slot is probably going to be either Murphy, or Tulu, or Rita, or Kazia. Now, I like Kazia just because of Kazia's ability to spam Vortis's cards. So as I mentioned to you, right, so her telekinesis, I can take any one card from Ultra Space. So what I would do here, right, is I'd play Vortis's card first, her 2 cost, put it into Ultra Space, and then I'd play telekinesis from Kazia, taking that card back, reducing it by 2, and playing it again. So when I do that, now I have 2 stacks right away, and it's very easy to gain stacks of Vortex on my team. So that's kind of why I like Kazia here. But if you had Tulu, right, you're going to help you build some tentacle damage. If you have Murphy, it's going to help you with sustain. And then if you're going to have a Rita, it's because mostly you love a Rita and it's just another damage dealer. But now you kind of have like 3 competing damage dealers for cards, right? So you have Rita, Corpo, and what's her name? And Vortis. So that's kind of like hard. The nice part with Corpo and why she works well is basically her over enlighten. So you obtain 3 tentacles. So when you over exalt Corpo, You would obtain 3 tentacles, and then you can exalt Vortis and lose those 3 tentacles. So your net is basically 0, right? So that would be really nice and one of the main reasons. And you can also see here, right? One of her effects is a crit rate. But again, on Vortis, it's Realm Mastery and into what's it, S key as well. So let's look a little bit about Realm Mastery, and remember it's Divine Aqui or Realm Mastery. So for each point of Realm Mastery, you gain a little bit more shield when you go into White Stance, and then for each point of Realm Mastery, you gain a little bit more tentacle damage when you go into Red Stance. So that's what you're getting with Realm Mastery in the Divine Aqui realm. For Ultra, you get like a chance to get an inspiration card, so that would kind of help you out here. You might just get a little bit more inspo, which again would help you to be able to spam Vortice's cards. And then for Caro, each time you devour, you gain shield or temporary strength for the first devour. So this is kind of one of the teams that I was thinking about, is like basically the core is Corpo, Vortis, and then Clem or Celeste, and then your flex spot at the end. Or the other one is basically a Dorison team. So now with Dorison, this kind of changes a little bit. With Dorison, I'm going to make Vortis an Esky bot. Okay. And then I'm going to have Pikmin in the team here. And the goal, this blank spot, I didn't say that before. This is probably just going to be her main like event wheel. So you just play through her event and you'll get the wheel that I'd put here, as be my guess. So I would probably do, again, Dorison, Vortis, and then Pikmin as your main 3. And your last one here is Thais, Salvador, or Shu. And we'll go through that. I would probably pick Salve, but Thais is just way too valuable, and putting another Thais around was just hard. But let's go a little bit more about what would make Vortis nice here. So the problem with Dorison is that when an enemy has full health, he basically like sucks. He does so little damage that nothing happens. So, and it's just kind of feels like a waste. So what you want normally do is you play a lot of Pikmin's cards, specifically is Chromophage. I think that's how, yes, Chromophage here. And that drops down the enemy's damage, especially the mobs. And then it allows you to be able to, kill them with Dorison. But the nice part with Vortis is that with Vortis, I put on those reload stacks, and then I would be playing Pikmin and exalting him, doing damage with both Vortis reload stack and then playing the Chromophage. So there's really nice synergy there, right? I'd be doing a lot of damage to weaken and drop down the health of all of the mobs and all of the enemies. And then I always use Dorison as a nuke at the end to basically kill everybody, which is honestly quite amazing. And the other part here, oh no, the Realm Mastery doesn't help you with Crimson Furnace. I thought it would, but no, that's a different thing. That's Chaos Symbiosis. Anyway, the part that's really great with that is that with Pikmin, when you exalt, you can find Vortis's 2 or 3 cost, so you can spam that more often. You're probably also going to play Vortis's 3 cost more often because it will help her to exalt faster. And with just using the embryos, you also can play them on, so you can exalt Vortis faster. So that 200 will be easier to meet with all of these people, just helping her spam her exalt. The other part is that with Voracious Resolve, that's another way. So if you haven't played this posse, that's another way to get another part of those 2 or 3 cost cards and to drop them down and play them again. So this is a way that with Pikmin, I'm getting more of Vortis's cards, and then I'll be spamming her 2 and 3 cost cards to help her exalt faster. And then at the end here, I have Salvador just as a big body to help with just having more health, and also as like a little bit of a protection. But the cool part with Shu, that's kind of interesting, is that when you exalt Shu, right, you get 3 Arithmetica, which allows you then to play either Dorison's or Vortis's 3 cost card. So that's a great way to kind of have a little bit of synergy if you're struggling to get the Arithmetica to play her cards. But that's kind of like the teams that I look to see her in at the moment. If we go back to, let's go back to the picture here. So it's all, for me, it's all about playing this reload card again and again. And right now, the 2 teams that kind of looks that it would feel in is either a version of your discard team or a Dorison team because again, her damage is going to do a lot of damage, which allows then Dorison to be able to kill those people. Um, but outside of that, I don't know if there's anything like great for her at the moment. And so that's why my suggestion for you is that if you want to try her out in your discard team, I'd say absolutely pull her, go ahead. Um, and the level that I'd probably pull to is I'd probably be guaranteeing to get to E1. Anything past that is like, it's nice, but like even her OE, I was trying to think about when I would use her OE, and I'd basically use it like the first turn going into a boss battle. Because then I wouldn't care about like losing my tentacles and like the crit damage and like all that happens, but I'd be playing like Vortex's the next 5 vortexes shall unleash trigger 2 times. That's awesome to have right at the start. So I get 5 stacks of this double damage for a blue shell. I'm like, freaking right, let's do that. But that's the only reason why I'd be going for this. It's actually not so much about doing a whole bunch of damage at the end, because the part with like a pure blue team is you lose your ability to have those tentacles, which I don't know how great it is to really be doing that. Um, yeah, my suggestion for you, like, should you pull her, is basically you want to try her out in a version of the discard team. You're like, man, I pulled Dorison and I wish she was better, and like, so she can do something with Dorison. Or you now, in me just talking about spamming this reload card, you kind of thought of like a great team and like a great way to use her. But if none of those things are kind of resonating with you right now, I would suggest that you would just like hold off and wait until some people play around with her, and maybe there's going to be a different team or a different interaction that we haven't like discovered yet to be really great. So let somebody else figure it out for you before you invest in it, if those other 2 options or other 3 options don't really sound that interesting to you. So I hope that helps you out, and yeah, best of luck with your pulls.